Hello, everyone. Thanks for being with us here today. Today I'm gonna be making a presentation about the SoftScanner platform, which is a platform created for the continuous quality assessment of web applications. And this is the GitHub repository of the SoftScanner project. As you can see, it consists mainly of two projects, one for the back end and one for the front end of the platform. And we've also provided a full stack test application, a web application, consisting of one backend in Node.js and two front end, one with Angular and the other one with React. So I've already followed the installation setup of both projects, and I've set them up appropriately on my machine. And I've already launched both the back end and the front end. So the back end is running on this URL, whereas the front end is running on this URL. So if you open the front end URL, we will be greeted with the SoftScanner user interface. So as you can see, the user interface requires from its end users to provide metadata about their test application or the application they wish to assess. So in our case, this is the Angular application that we just saw together. And what we're going to do is provide its data inside this form. So I've already prepared the metadata required for this application. If we go over here, all we need to do is copy this information. So we have the name of the application. We have the absolute path to its code base. Then we have its URL. And finally, we need to select its type. So it's the front end and its technology. It's Angular. And as soon as we're done setting the metadata, we set it over here. So now we can see that it's already set. We can click to reset it, but we're gonna basically retain the provided data. So the next step after the application metadata provided to the front end of SoftScanner, what we need to do right now is select the goals or the quality goals that the user is interested in order to assess the application. So as we said, what we're interested about in this context is to assess the user engagement quality aspect of our application. So in order to find the user engagement, we can read, first of all, the information about each goal. So in our case here, we can have interaction capability, and it says it's the ability of a product to be interacted with by specified users to exchange information between a user and a system via the user interface to complete the intended task. So this seems like close to user engagement. And if we actually click on this button, we can see that this top level goal could actually be defined into more granular sub goals if you want. And we see a new symbol over here designating leaf goals, which are goals that cannot be refined anymore. So in our case, interaction capability can be refined into all of these goals. And as you can see, one of them is our target quality goal, which is user engagement itself refined into multiple goals as well. So as you can see, first of all, user engagement is the degree to which the software presents functions and information in an inviting and motivating manner, encouraging continued interaction. And its parent goal is interaction capability. And we can also see that it gets refined into multiple goals. So if you read the data of or the info about these goals, we see that popularity describes the degree to which the software is popular among its users, whereas activity is concerned with the degree to which users are actively engaged with the software, and loyalty is the degree to which users are loyal to the software. So in our context, we're going to select all of these goals, and we'll discuss at least one or two of them in this demo to see what they actually provide us. So now that we've selected our quality goals in the SoftScanner's quality mapping model, or quality model in short, all we need to do is simply click on the Start Quality Assessment, which will launch the quality assessment process. So let's do that. And as you can see, we have a progress bar that appears over here. We can stop the assessment, obviously. And in the meantime, the application is getting prepared for the quality assessment. What's actually happening right now is that the application is being instrumented with the proper telemetry agent. And as you can see, it's done with the instrumentation. But the idea is simple. All we're doing is properly instrumented the application with a telemetry agent or an observability agent, whose role is to collect the necessary data and metrics in order to evaluate the selected goals. And what we can see right now concretely is that following this instrumentation, the application which we are interacting with, which is the Angular application, have changed. And you can see that in VS Code over here. First of all, we have a new folder called assets, which contains JS bundles, namely the bundle that is injected into the application and which will be used to collect this data. And if we go into the index HTML, you can see that there's a new line or a new script that has been added over here that references this bundle. So the idea is that SoftScanner automatically instruments the application while minimally modifying its code base. And as you can see over here, it simply consists of an extra script in the main template of the application without actually touching the rest of the code base and its business logic. So now that we saw the effect of instrumentation for quality assessment on our test application, let's continue with the SoftScanner workflow. So as you can see, the instrumentation is complete, and we have an alert which asks us whether we want to open our application in order to interact with it. So let's do that. And before we proceed to the interaction, we must understand something very important in how the telemetry agent will collect data about the instrumented application. So in all of the telemetry data, we will have IDs that will be used in order to tag these user interaction sessions. And we have three different types of IDs. We have user IDs, where each user ID is associated with a browser instance, and where each user for the first time visits a browser for a specific duration, let's say for 30 minutes, which would be stored in a specific timestamp and dynamically changes over time. But also there's a third type of IDs besides the user ID and visit ID, which is the basic session ID, where each user interaction session is actually a tab within a browser instance. So now that we've created or that we've opened our application to interact with it, we've actually created a user with a new ID who just did his first visit to our instrumented application, and this is the user's first session. So let's open multiple sessions for the user and see what the effect will be in terms of quality assessment for the application. So I'm going to open up two more instances. And for each instance, I'm going to be creating different kinds of interactions in order to see how will that be displayed in SoftScanner. So for the first session, let's say I'm going to simply like this post, and I'm going to add a new post. So this is a new post, whatever, again. For the second session, I'm going to simply see the existing users. As you can see, we don't have any users. And I'm just going to go back to posts again. For the final session, I'm going to be a little bit more interactive. I'm going to add a new user. So let's say John Doe, male. John Doe, we can actually copy that, whatever. Whatever again. We can add that. Let's choose a country. Simple bio. So you can see we're doing a lot of interactions in this form. Let's say 760. Let's add this, and we basically create our new user. So let's go back to SoftScanner and see what happened. But in a nutshell, in the first interaction session, we basically liked the post and added a new post. In the second session, we saw the list of users and we saw the lists of posts again. And finally, we've added a new user. As you can see now in this section, the goal assessment section, we have different panels for the selected goals that we selected initially. We have the composite goals, composite goal, user engagement, and we also have its different leaf sub-goals, namely popularity, activity, and loyalty. So let's examine the content of each of these panels accordingly. So if we examine the first goal, which is the composite goal, user engagement, first of all, we will see that it contains two sections. The first section is an overview, where we first of all see the description of user engagement. And if we want more details, we can simply click over here to read the parent relationship. And we can see, first of all, a global score, which describes the state of user engagement in the application, as you can see over here in a percentage. So we can see that as soon as the different sessions of interactions with the application occurred, we can see that the user engagement increased with time. And in order to understand this score, we can see how each metric or quality metric has been used in order to create the score. So we have a list of multiple metrics over here. If we want to have a basic, let's say, understanding of each metric, we can simply click on it. So this is, for instance, number of users, and it's the number of unique, distinct users using an application. Users, its current value is 1 because we only have one user in this current browser. We can see also a history of its value across time. And if you want to have more in-depth understanding of every metric, you can simply just go and click over here, and you can see the value of this metric in depth. Here we can see the historical evolution of the value of the metric, and we can see its current value over here as well. Now, something interesting, as you can see here, we have a very long list of metrics that have been used to evaluate user engagement. But we need to understand where these metrics come from, actually. In order to do that, let's check out the different sub-goals of user engagement. So if we see the first sub-goal of user engagement, popularity, we will see that it consists of the following metrics and that it has the following global score. And as you can see, the same metrics over here could be found at the level of the top level goal, which is user engagement. So here we have all of the metrics associated with popularity as well. Okay, you can also see how the data is evolving over time continuously. So instead of seeing all the metrics at the top level goal, you can actually see them at the level of each sub goal. This only provides a view for the goal, for the overall composite goal that we selected. But if we want to have a more refined understanding of every sub-goal thereof, we simply need to check their corresponding panels. So for the popularity, we have basically all of these metrics defined. Let's check them out. You have number of users. So as I said, a user corresponds to a browser instance. In our case, that's simply 1. This user only did 1 visit, and it did 3 different sessions, as we can see from the tabs over here. And then based on these values, we can have different average values over here. So average visits per user is going to be 1 because we only have 1 user. Average sessions per user is going to be 3, and this is going to be 3 as well, average sessions per visit. So we can actually see further that for this application, as you can see now, we have a user ID, we have a visit ID, and we have a visit timestamp over here. So what happens if we try to open a new browser instance? Well, we're supposed to have a new user with a new visit and with his corresponding, with their corresponding sessions. So let's try that. I'm gonna simply open a new browser instance. Go over to Edge, and I'll say localhost 4000. So let me add a new post. Here's another post. Lol. And I'll give it a like. Then, if I go back to the application, I will see that the popularity, first of all, have changed over here, which is normal because now, instead of doing all the calculations on a single user, we're actually doing it on 2 different users. And in order to make sure of that, we can see that the number of users now is actually 2. Similarly, we can see that the number of visits have become 2 as well, because it's a new visit for the new user. The number of sessions now are 4, because we only opened 1 session for the new user, but you can actually see how the averages have changed. Well, we still have 1 visit per user because both users only did 1 visit. However, we have different sessions, average sessions per user, because both of these users have different number of sessions and their average is actually 2. And finally, for the sessions per visit, we can actually see that it's the same thing because we didn't have a lot of different visits. So if you want to simulate different visits, in our case, for instance, we can, let's say for this user, the first user, we'll make them actually do 2 visits instead. So we need to go over here and actually open a new instance and then simply get rid of the visit ID and the visit timestamp. So this is only just to demonstrate how this will change the user engagement data. So I'll do something. Here's yet another post. This is for testing only. I'll dislike it, and then I'll go back, and I'll see how the data changed again. Okay, and obviously all of this data also changed at the top level goal as well, as you can see over here. Let's get back to the sub goal and popularity. So if we look at the number of visits now, we will see that we have 3 visits instead of 2 because the first user now did 2 different visits for the application. We still have 2 users, but we have different number of sessions now, as the total now becomes 5. And finally, if we look at the average, we'll see that the average is 1.5 visits per user, whereas the average session per user has become 2.5 now, and the final average sessions per visit became actually 1 point something, 75 or something, okay? So that's concerning the popularity subgoal. Let's check out the other subgoals now. So while the popularity subgoal examines some metrics as the number of users, visits, sessions, and their average values, the activity subgoal focuses on other aspects. It focuses on mainly the interaction frequency of users, their dwell time, and what's called click depth or navigation clicks per user. So if we take a look, for instance, at the UIFU, which is user interaction frequency per user, it basically measures how frequently users interact with the software during a typical user interaction. And it's measured by interactions per user. For the time being, its current value is 21. And as you can see, the value changed over time, which is very normal because at the beginning, we only had 1 user, and the interaction of that user basically caused this frequency to go upwards as the user kept interacting with the application. And as we introduced a new user, which didn't interact as frequently as before, this value dropped to 15, and then it increased again. And this behavior will be similar if we introduce other users as well, depending on the frequency of the interaction. So for instance, if I go to the second user and I open a new session of interaction, I'll make sure that this interaction has a lot of this session has a lot of interactions. So let's say I will like a lot of things over here. I will delete these things. I will add another post. Here's another post, whatever, again. Okay, I'll dislike it because I'm not very creative. But now, if you go back, wait for it, you can see how the activity started to rise again. And if we look at, if we look at the user interaction frequency, you will see how it skyrocketed this time because I did a lot of interactions. Okay, and we can also see similar behavior with user interactions per visit, user interactions per session as well. And that's it for user interaction. What about dwell time? So what does it do? What does dwell time mean? So if you click on dwell time, DTU, it's dwell time per user, and it's the average time per user. Okay, the time spent by the user using the application. And you can see that the dwell time is in constant increment, which is very normal because for all users the interaction is still going, as we didn't close the interaction sessions. And we can also see again dwell time per visit. You can see dwell time per session as well. So the dwell time per session will change because for different sessions we will have different dwell time as we open these sessions successively. So that's the general idea behind the dwell time metric. What about the navigation clicks per user? Well, as you can see over here, we have for each user on average, again, we can see the details about this, navigation clicks per user, it's average number of navigation clicks or page views per user. So this will basically measure how many times a user clicked to navigate from route to route within a web application. And as you can see, this value changed depending on how many times we actually navigated to the application. So we did that in multiple occurrences where we navigated from the add new post to the posts to the user route, so on and so forth. And the same behavior could be measured for per visit and per session. And that's the general idea behind the activity sub-goal of user engagement. The same idea could be also said about the loyalty sub-goal, but we won't be going a lot into details about that. But understand that this is also another sub-goal of user engagement with its own metrics. You can also read about all of these metrics if you want further information, and in order to understand how they evolve with the different user interaction contexts. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope this demo was useful to you. As we saw together, SoftScanner actually automates a lot of the tasks involved in the quality assessment process. And what's even more important is that how, as you can see, its ease of use as the metrics provided and the goals provided are actually understandable by different end users having different backgrounds and expertise. As we can see, there's not a lot of complexities in relation to these metrics and their role in the scores they compute. And you can also see that the SoftScanner is minimally invasive in terms of its instrumentation, as it does not introduce considerable changes to the code base of the instrumented application. So thank you very much for your attention, and hope to see you again soon.